What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Switch Talk, the perfectly pocket-sized podcast where we talk about the system that has stolen our hearts and minds, this hybrid console that has stolen our hearts and minds, the Nintendo Switch. Welcome back. We're going to spend 30 minutes talking about Runner 3. 30 minutes or less. Clay, you told us, you know what, we should give this game a shot. You put it all on the line once again with a recommendation out of left field. I don't think it's on too many people's radar, but you're a fan of the series, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, once again, I feel like I took over and demanded that we play another game. So
you're getting us out of the box.
Guys.
You're taking us out of the proverbial box, and we appreciate it, don't we, David?
Yes, absolutely.
I want to welcome my illustrious co-hosts, Clay, David.
Hello.
And I just want to hand it over to Clay because, like I said, he's the one who kind of steered the ship toward this iceberg. So tell us what's going on, Clay. Tell me about Runner 3.
Yeah, so basically I wasn't aware of this game until a number of years ago. I started playing Runbow, and Commander Video is in Runbow, along with a bunch of other indie characters. And so it was at that point that I picked up Runner 2 for the Wii U. And so that was kind of my first experience with the Runner series. So when I saw that they announced a sequel coming to the Switch, I was immediately ecstatic and very excited about it. So my experience with 2 started with me and my buddy were playing it together, and we would pass the controller each level, and so one of us would play one and then the other one would take it. And so that's kind of the way I always knew it. It was never just a me experience. It was something where I was playing with another buddy, and we enjoyed it that way. But unfortunately this time nobody around to play with besides you guys. So I know I've been messaging you guys throughout the week about it, and clearly I'm the one who's the most excited about this, but you guys did your best to indulge me. So but no, I'm having a great time with it. I've put about 10 hours into it now.
Oh my gosh.
And hasn't even been a week. And so yeah, at first I was having a decent time, like, okay, getting used to things. There's some different things, some new things that they've changed, and so kind of getting reacquainted with it was a little overwhelming at first. But then once I got going, I mean, yesterday I just sat and played, and I kept saying, like, all right, I'll get to this point and that should be enough, like I'll probably be done for the night. And I couldn't put it down. I just kept playing, and then I woke up this morning and I played a little bit more. So I'm really enjoying it. Starting off, I'm having a great time, and I'm only like halfway through all the levels, and there's just so much to do in this game.
I think that I don't really play these games unless like pushed, and it's something about the style. Like you mentioned Runbow. For the viewers who are watching on YouTube, you're going to see gameplay, obviously, but if you're listening to the audio version, think of Runbow, think of Super One More Jump. It's one of these, it's a runner game, so you're primarily moving from left to right across the screen, and you don't have any control over your pace, but you can jump, you can kick things down, barriers, you can go under. So it's all about your reaction speed and looking at the obstacles as they're coming toward you, and then twitch speed, try to adapt to the environment and then get to the checkpoint, which is halfway through, and then finally through the end of the level. And there's collectibles all over the place. Clay is really apt at finding them. I'm not. So that's the game in a nutshell. It's all about, trying to see if you can collect the things, obviously, but just surviving through the levels challenging enough. I think that the only thing I heard about Runner 3 going in, since it's not like the most known franchise, was that this iteration was very difficult compared to others in the series. I want to say that I played some Runner 2 as well because everything felt very familiar, but I can't nail down when I would have played it. But it clicks. It's kind of that challenging fun, and that's like the style, and it's not necessarily for me, but still I enjoyed my time. I mean, there's going to be those barriers where it did get quote unquote too hard, but I looked at the counter because it counts your deaths, and I was able to get through a level with about 15 deaths, some my own fault, some I kind of blame on other controls. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but overall my impressions were pretty positive, with the game. I'm glad we picked it up. I'm glad that Clay, suggested another one. David, what are your thoughts?
So I guess my background with the series is probably a little bit less than you guys. I think I tried Runner 2 once, and I think it might have been free on PlayStation Plus or something like that. So I tried it once on there, and I don't think I really clicked with me. So that was my only really experience going in. I kind of first couple levels I kind of really enjoyed it. I really loved I have no idea that Charles Martinet was involved with this game, and that has probably been my number one favorite thing is just the fact that the voice of Mario is in it and doing a voice that's not Mario. And I really like the visuals. There's a lot of charm. I have no idea what the main character is supposed to be, but he looks cool at the same time. He's like this big. He reminds me of like that thing you used to like beat up in the stadium mode to like Super Smash Brothers. I can't remember what it is, but however, I also find the game horribly frustrating, and I definitely agree that it is very hard. I had, I think, one level I spent almost an hour on. I was trying to beat. I was trying to get past this level before we recorded today, and I spent about an hour on it this morning before I was just like, I can't anymore.
Now, were you trying to 100% it, like get all the gold?
No,
or
just
were
to
you
get past
trying to
it.
get through it.
Just to get past it. So apparently, I have no rhythm. I don't know. Maybe that's part of it. I don't really play very many endless runner games, so that might be part of it. So I don't really have. I'm used to being able to take my time in platformers, and when I go fast is after I've gone through something slow a lot of times. And this, it's just like, okay, it's like you're always speed running. So it's like, there's not that period where you learn the level and figure it out and plan it out before you try to go fast. It's just like throws you right in. So some people are going to like that, and some people aren't. Part of me, I think the reason that it kind of maybe might not be my thing as much is that I kind of understand it on phones a lot more, because it's kind of a mechanic that's out of necessity in that regard. But I don't understand it as much in sort of the context of a console game, why it has to be that way. But as I said, I think it might just be a case in the genre is not as appealing to me as it is to some people. So I can't really fault it as much for that, especially when the presentation is so good. And I realize that if you are into this type of game, this is going to be one of the best ones.
What's the name of the main character again, Clay? Because I know the pen company Bic has this like weird like shape that kind of looks like him. He's like a black figure with like a TV in his face. What's the name of the character that you're playing as?
Commander Video,
and it's a screen on his face, right?
No, I think that's just where he looks out through. That's
okay. Well, we definitely have to do some deep research to figure this out. So you can you start out as the male version, then there's like Mrs. Major Commander Video, whatever, and there's a pink
Correct.
female version, and then like you said, I mean, there's some surprise unlockable characters. I to this point have been through the first level, all of the retro themed levels in the first world, and then on to world 2, and still have not unlocked a character. So to me that was the primary thing that was like keeping me going, collecting the collectibles and trying to find the hidden objects, and I couldn't find any.
Well, here's the problem. Here's what I'm starting to realize. And I'm still trying to figure this out. I've looked online. There are no guides to this game, at least at this point. Basically, what happens is in certain levels, there are characters that you can go off the beaten path and talk to, and they will give you tasks. They'll have you find 3 things or do 3 actions. And then if you come back to them, then you get a character unlocked. They're like hero quests or something. I can't remember what they're called. But you have to go find them in a level. So you have to play through the level to get to that point to talk to them. They give you a hint as to where one of them is in a specific level. So then you can quit out at that point, go back, and then after you talk to that person, those items appear in 3 different levels within the same world. So until you talk to them, they're not they're not there, which I didn't realize that at first, but because there was literally one time I went through a level and I like went up and down the whole thing, went and talked to a guy. When I came back to it, there was the thing I needed, and I was like, yeah, that definitely wasn't there before. So things don't appear until you get tasked with finding such things. As far as I understand it, but so then you go through 3 levels, and so you're basically going back through the levels that you've already played, which some people don't like, but I don't really mind because I've already done it, so I'm already pretty familiar with it. Sometimes you have to go the alternate gem path to find the thing, and so you end up playing the same level a couple times, but if I'm not really focusing on anything other than finding that item, it's a bit of a different play experience for me, and it's a little less risk-taking involved until you find the item. Then you have to take risk in getting it, and then you just have to finish the level. And as long as you finish the level having found that item or done a certain action, then you take it back. After you get 3 of them, take it back, and they give you a new character. There are 11 total characters. I've unlocked 7 of them thus far. And I think it's pretty cool. They all play the same. They all handle exactly the same. They just physically look different and have different aesthetics to them. So,
I want to say that the game, because the presentation is, it's kind of text heavy. So there are instructions. There is a story. I have found those hero quest side characters who are telling you what to do, but the text was so. It's trying to be cute and like quirky and a little sarcastic in the writing. It's kind of odd tonally all over the place. But I thought I could just skip through. So I would read and I'm like, okay, this person's telling me whatever. And it wasn't until I found like the 3rd character that it was saying, okay, find these 3 things. Now I had no idea about you having to speak with them first to have them trigger the item. At any point when it triggers, do you have to go backwards in the level, or is it just forwards, like in the world?
They're
to
not
a new level.
The hidden things aren't in the level with the character. Everything
That's
I found
very
is
odd. Yeah,
different. It's different levels usually. Sometimes it's the first level, sometimes the last one. But at the screen select though, you can see that there are 2 items usually in every level, and you can see the silhouette of it. So basically, I can just walk over the level and I can tell that is the head of a baby doll, and I know that I need to go there to get that. So honestly, as soon as I figure out where the first one is and I go to the level and find it after he tells me where it is, I can pretty much figure out where the other 2 are without even having to go back to him, grab them, and then and it gets addicting, man, because you just start running around. You're like, all right, I'm gonna get this. And then one time I was looking for an item and I found a character to talk to that I didn't even know existed. And then he gave me new tasks, and so that was why last night I unlocked like 3 characters. Because once I started, I just was finding all these areas I hadn't found yet, and was just having a good time with it. I got like addicted to unlocking characters last night. It was crazy.
Yeah, you definitely have to have that draw. I mean, like when we tried to say we were obviously going to play as much of the game as possible, I got my OCD in there, and you're collecting the. It's like equivalent to the most basic item is gold, so coins or whatever. Think of it like that. So it takes a little bit of skill. Like if you play it safe, you may like miss some of that. But there's gold, and then there's different paths that you can take, and like you said, then there's gems, and you can unlock. The currency unlocks different things like alterations to your existing character, based on the gems and then the gold. So there's a lot, and then the hidden collectibles for the characters. So there's a lot there. If you're that type that likes that challenge, it's very collectible heavy. What did you think, David, about the whole loop? Like, I know you were saying you were frustrated, but did you have any fun? I mean, you mentioned, I guess, spoiler alert a little bit. We might as well talk about it, but the characters, what did you think of them? The ones that you did unlock. Talk a little bit more about that, too.
He didn't unlock no characters.
I didn't unlock any characters.
What?
I couldn't even.
Same as
honestly,
me. We're brothers.
At this point, I'm just trying to complete the levels. I'm not worrying about that collectibles. I know I was on the lookout too, because Clay told me to look for this VHS tape in like level 3, and I was looking all over for it. I have no idea where that was, and it took me so long to get through it. I was just like, no, I'm not going back again to look for that VHS tape. I'm going on to the next level. So I know there's a good deal of things to unlock, but and I'm sort of aware the game makes you aware that they're there. But as I said, my goal has just been to try to get through them. So unfortunately, I'm still on the default character.
I think there's something for everybody too. Like the most positive thing I can say about the game is when it's supposed to be a challenge, right? So there's obstacles and different like combinations of them, and getting you to kind of be trying to be as sharp as possible, keep you on your toes. I think the game's at its best when it kind of lets the reins back a little bit about that, like lets its foot off the gas and lets you have fun. One of the levels in particular, in the first world where you're in a refrigerator, like it seemed like more fun. It let you bounce around. It's the first time where you can change directions going from right to left. One of the triggers to let you bounce off things, like it was one of the levels that primarily opened that up. I felt cool when I was pulling things off in certain levels, and then certain levels it seemed like it was just frustrating. What did you think, Clay, about the world, the levels, the theme, like any stuff like that?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, everything's kind of silly and kind of ridiculous. So the first world is like food world, and then world 2 is like spooky world. And so I think they did really well with the themes. The enemies and obstacles are very theme heavy. You have 2 liquids that you're drinking for some reason, which is pretty prima donna of you. But
water and coffee equal balance.
And that's the thing is, one of the new things introduced to this game that wasn't in Runner 2 are vehicles. And so there's a bunch of different things that you can ride on and fly in. Some of them make sense, like airplanes, but then you also get to fly in like on a beer can. And you get to ride on the back of a bookworm. So there's just like some really weird and different things. You have your mine carts and your airplanes and cars and stuff. But those aren't my favorite parts, but they break it up a little bit. It makes it feel a little bit different, and changes up the gameplay a little bit. So I like that. And there's still things I'm finding in the game that I I hadn't seen yet. So it's not like by World 3 everything starts repeating. There are some unique moments, some things where I was playing and I'm like, man, I wish the guys could see this, because it's a little bit different than just kicking walls and ducking under bad guys the whole time. They do things to try to make it feel a little bit more different. And some of the stuff happens just in the background. There's a part at the very end of World 2, and I'm not going to give it away, but it's just really visually cool. But basically, you're like super small, and there's this really big thing going on in the background. And it's kind of spooky, and you don't really understand what's happening. And you get to the end of the level, and then if you go back in and do the gem part of it, it basically turns the camera around, and you can see the other side of this room where there's another character that you couldn't see the first time you played through it. And it's just like, oh, I had no idea that person was there, but it changed the perspective, and it plays out this little like mini story. And then you go to the next level, and there's the boss, which has to do with the level before it. And it's just cool stuff like that, where playing through the level different ways gives you different perspectives that shows difference. And so some levels are stronger than others. Some levels are harder than others. There's been a couple I'm like, oh, that was really easy. Like, I barely died at all. And there's some, for whatever reason, I die 30 sometimes. And the game has no problem telling you how many times you've died. Like, immediately after you die, a big old number pops up on the screen and tells you how many times you've died. So, but the point of this game is little by little, even if it's really difficult, you kind of start to memorize the level, and you kind of get into the zone, and you almost like just kind of know how you just are reciting it back. This game isn't necessarily about beating every level on your first playthrough. Sometimes you gotta die multiple times to figure out what you're supposed to do, and then you pretty much lock in the way you do it, and that's the way you do it. Yeah, you can change it up, but for the most part, I just play the level the same way. And it's all about the rhythm of it. The music is brilliant in this game, just how like it was in 2. And it's all about going along with the music, and everything that you collect contributes to the music. And so, yeah, you guys joke like, oh, you got to have rhythm with it and stuff. And it's not really that intense where like, it's not like DDR where if you don't hit it exactly, you have a little bit of wiggle room. Right. But what you're seeing visually as a platformer is actually taking place more rhythmically than you might think, which is really some of the brilliance of the game, and I like that about it. And Dave, you mentioned it. It kind of has a little bit of a Zen kind of like it kind of relaxes you a little bit.
Yeah. When you're going good on it, and definitely in the first couple levels, it was the most because those times like that difficult. That's you can kind of like a little bit of a vibe, and the way that the music interacts with what's happening on screen is very satisfying and kind of soothing to you.
Yeah.
But it almost makes it worse even when you die, though, because you start feeling all cool and zen and like, oh, then you just crash into something stupid, and then it's like, and that just makes you mad.
Yep.
So did you enjoy the tunes, David, as you were listening?
Yeah,
did you crank it up?
The music was very good. The presentation is very excellent on this game. I think I got in that a little bit. The voices, the music, all that stuff is very well done.
As you do the collectibles, there's like that, like a little chime, and then the tone changes, and because everything's like placed where it is, and you're kind of running at the same clip, it kind of chimes up and like gets you going, and like gives you that little, reward. That little chime really like clicks in your head and makes it a little bit more addicting. Did you, David? Did you have any problem with the controls? How things felt in any game where you're a platformer? And, there's some platforming in here, obviously. When you jump, every game's different. Your momentum, how weighty you feel. What did you think about how the game felt control-wise?
I mean, a lot of it's done for you, so that just by principle annoys me a little bit, that being forced to run forward. But as far as the jumping and stuff like that, I thought it was fine. It doesn't feel as good as some games, but it certainly doesn't feel bad.
They didn't unlock the double jump until late in the first world, I think. And I was mentioning that specifically to Clay. I was like, I really hope they let me double jump at some point, which is kind of odd. But I guess they wanted you to like build up your skills. You know how to interact with that enemy. You know what to do with a wall. You have to kick it. So you're kind of learning as you go. So I kind of got it later, the why behind that.
I think each level is kind of supposed to teach you about the mechanic they introduce.
And then they make it more and more complex. How complex does it get in that sense, Clay? Because you have different moves, bounce up, kick something, duck down. How does that go?
I don't think there has been, unless I'm forgetting something, there really hasn't been that many other moves introduced after the double jump. And even the double jump wasn't in Runner 2. And so I love double jumps in video games, but I kind of don't like it in this game. I was like, at first I was like, oh, okay, that could be interesting. But then the more I played with it, the more I'm like, I don't know if I like it in this kind of game, because it sometimes, and they even warn you like on the load screens, like just because you can double jump doesn't mean you always have to, or you should. And so a lot of the times it's like, I'm just playing the game trying to figure out, do they want me to double jump here? Or am I not supposed to? Whereas before in Runner 2, you didn't have to worry about that because you couldn't double jump. So you're like, well, I know that I can do this with just a normal jump. I just have to figure it out. So like, it just adds another layer of like, what am I supposed to do here that I'm not as big a fan of. But at the same time, sometimes it's nice to have it. Oh, and also when you're going up like stairs really quickly, if you jump too much, you'll accidentally double jump before you land on the stairs. And so there were a lot of times where I just die trying to go up the stairs real quickly, which was kind of frustrating. But
yeah, absolutely. The game wants precision. It wants you to do things and on time and to learn a lot. You can hold down to fall faster, and again, everything visually is changing up a little bit, like thematically world to world, but if it's a wall, the wall doesn't change. But there are things flying in and out of your peripheral and things going on in the background of the stage, somewhat obstructive sometimes. Like I remember there's bumblebees like just flying through, and it's kind of obscuring like the next pickup, and then I hit something and I'm just like, so it kind of gets in the way, a little bit. The reason I brought up the controls specifically is I had problems with kicking down walls. It didn't seem like I would die multiple times at the wall sections. And I'm to the point of frustration where I'm like, I know I hit this button. Did you guys have any problems specifically with the kicking walls, dying when you think the controls just didn't pick up an input, or is it just me? I switched to the Pro controller on the full screen dock mode too.
Right.
And I died multiple times at walls, only walls.
I never had that problem.
Okay, it's a conspiracy.
Mainly is
the game hates me.
Stairs are my bane. They have like you jump up a whole bunch right in a row.
Yeah.
I can go through like 10 lives just on one of those places.
Those are all about the rhythm, man. Those are all about listening to the music and jumping with the rhythm. Because I saw somebody ask the developer, do you have any advice for people trying to get up the stairs? And they're like, it's all about the rhythm of the song. You got to play it along with it.
Yeah, turn up the music. A pro tip, like really listen. I thought that when you kick down walls, it was silent. Like there was no sound effect at all. It's just subtle. It's there. So when I turned up the volume, I was happier about that.
I don't like that because in 2 it was a very loud crash sound.
You're kicking the wall down.
It feels so out of place here that part of me thinks that it's like a glitch or something. It's
the
probably
mix
not.
Is off.
But
the audio mix is off.
It's that part. Kicking the door down specifically bothers me. So I'm glad you mentioned that because that was something that I wasn't a huge fan of. Was whatever decision was made there, but.
I mean, it's small complaints. I think overall, it's important to talk about, do the controls hold up? And I think they do. It must just be me with the kick, but again, turning the volume up will solve a lot of those problems for you. I think if you're not a fan of the genre overall, it will also be fun for you. I would just give you the advice of try to let your OCD go and just kind of get through the levels and experience the fun gem levels that are like there that are just really fun every 20 minutes or so, assuming you're not spending an hour on each level. Every 20 minutes or so you should be like, wow. And I like that in any game. I think I've said it before, when they mix up the formula, when you start to see things that are new, that's the type of stuff I enjoy. And this game's no different. I really liked when I was like, man, I feel good in this level, or that enemy is great. I wanted to bring up one more like really bad spot that I saw. Can you talk to me about the boss fight, David, at the end of the first world? Did you get to him?
He didn't get to know boss.
No, I'm still stuck on the first world.
Clay, talk to me about the boss.
All right, so I've played 2 bosses. First one was incredibly easy, and I got through it like literally in one life.
What's this mechanic that they introduce? I mean, no spoilers.
It's the most. No, I'm gonna spoil it. It's literally the most brilliant thing to explain as far as boss battles go. So there's this robot Santa Claus who has a like rocket launcher that he shoots hot dogs out of, and you, Commander Video, have this vehicle on a track that you catch the hot dogs with the vehicle. And it chops them, and it meat grinds them up and shoots them back out of a cannon back at Robot Santa with a meatball. And so you catch the projectiles, dodge some other ones, and then you have to fire the meat back at him and kill him. It's literally brilliant. It's groundbreaking on every level.
That sounds awesome.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever experienced. First of all, the perspective changes from you're not running anymore. It's like, think Contra. You're kind of like looking at the 3D levels where something's in front of you. You can only move left or right with your little mine cart. And again, I'm sure that, and you kind of hinted at it, that the bosses make sense later, and it's like a callback to whatever weird-ass story is going on here. But basically, it made no sense. I'm like, why is this changed? Like, whatever. I didn't enjoy it. And if they're at all similar with, the future bosses, then I'm sure I won't enjoy those little segments. But they're small. It's like, it's not a highlight of the game, I would say, in any sense. But I say there's plenty there.
Boss 2 was better. I think Boss 2 was a little bit better. It wasn't as weird. It was a bit more of a traditional boss battle. So
that's cool. And what would you say overall? Should people pick up this game? What are you gonna give this game? What are you gonna rate this game? Let's start with you, David. What do you think? Final thoughts.
Okay. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on your personal enjoyment of these types of games. As if you've never played a game like this before, you might want to try it first and see if you like it.
A demo? What? I mean,
yeah,
this would be a perfect game for a
available,
demo.
But maybe.
Well, we bought physical, so.
Yeah, borrow it from a friend, see if you like it, and then if you do. If it's for you, then I said absolutely. The presentation, music, and stuff like that is amazing. Sort of my objective rating of the game, if I take sort of my... Because I feel like part of my reason is I'm not that good at it. I would give it an 8 out of 10. My own personal enjoyment's probably closer to a 7 out of 10 now.
Fair enough.
What do you think, Clay?
My final thoughts. I think that you get a ton of bang for your buck on this game. I think there's lots to do. Yeah, there's 40 levels, which doesn't sound like a lot, but there really is so much more to it. Playing through each level, collecting every gold, then turning back around and playing and getting all the gem pieces in the alternate routes that are unlocked once you beat the level. That right there is 2 times through a level, and so getting everything, it takes some time. It's a challenge, but it's there. And then, as we mentioned, you have to go back through and get the hidden pieces in certain levels to unlock characters. And then you're also unlocking these puppet shows that give you some storyline to go along with the area you're in. So there's like a little bit of backstory in that. Those are also found through hidden pieces in each level. And then there's the retro levels, which is literally a second game that controls completely different than the main game. It controls like a normal platformer, and that has its own levels within each world. So there's more levels even there. And then on top of that, you have costumes and customization that you use by getting currency from playing the game. So there's just so much to it. There's a lot to do. I've already put 10 hours in, and I could see myself easily putting in plenty more. I mean, I'm only halfway through, and most of those levels, I haven't even gotten everything in them. So lots to do. I think it's really fun. The music is top-notch. If you buy it physical, you get a CD sampler that comes with the soundtrack. And it also comes with a really beautiful manual that comes with it. And so it's just, they went all out with this one, and I think they did a great job. I love this game. I think it's really cool, really quirky, good, humorous writing, and Charles Martinet is a gem, and so he's super great in this one as well. So,
what is your rating?
Oh, yes, 8.5 out of 10.
We do a 10 scale, right?
I don't know what we do. Dave said 10, so I did 10.
Yeah, I think you threw me off, David. I want to say we do a 5.
Do we?
I don't know.
I swear we were
Anyway,
doing
we'll get it
out of 10
right.
last time.
You can do your math. You can do your math. You can do your math later. But
Confirm it.
I totally agree with everything that you've said. Most important points is that the controls are pretty good, and the levels are decent, and the sound's great. I think that if it's for you, you'll enjoy it. And I like to give the games that, even though they're outside of what I'd usually want to play, they're just dues. So I would say that this is super solid. 7 out of 10 at least. I'm sure that if I loved it, I could go ahead and bump it up even more to an 8. But I haven't experienced it yet. But I trust Clay, so it's got to be like a 7 or 8 out of 10. I want to thank everybody for joining us for Switch Talk. We have some really important stuff coming up. E3 is going to come. A lot of games are going to be launching, and Nintendo's really cranking it up now after a bit of a slow spring, but that's okay. We're going into summer. It's going to get hot. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to Switch Talk. Go ahead and pick up Runner 3. It's pretty cool. We'll join us next time. Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, not bad.